So today we're going to talk about how can we go about using manage identity using the Graph Explorer. So we would be adding the Graph application permission to the manage identity using the Graph Explorer, and how you can use manage identity to authenticate Microsoft Graph. So what we'll be doing is we'll be creating an Azure Logic app and using manage identity as the authentication provider. So in this case, we won't be needing any kind of credentials. Like if we talk about Graph, then we would ideally need delegated permission or application permission. But in this case, we would be authenticating using the managed identity provided by Microsoft Azure. So I use managed identity in Azure for a lot of different automating scenarios. But for example, if I want to run like a logic app or an Azure function, that should securely call a Graph API. So in such scenario, the managed identity represented by its service principal needs to be granted application permission to the API. Let's say, for example, you want to list Intune devices, manage devices in your organization. For example, so we'll be using uh, get manage devices using the Intune Graph API. So we can use Logic App, for example, to connect to Microsoft Graph using the manage identity. So then you'll need to give the manage identity an app role assignment for an application permission in Graph. Okay, let's enough talking. Let's get started. Um, so I'll be creating a Logic app. So I'll just go ahead and create a Logic app. So here it would be a new resource group. You can name it anything. Name of the Logic app is Logic app new. Again, it could be anything as you want. We'll be checking if this name exists, or maybe it is not following the naming convention, having the capital letters. I think it should work now. Yeah, it is. All right, let's go to the consumption plan. You can choose any plan as you want. I'll just go on review and create. Okay, let's create. So currently there's no way to manage this application role assignment in Azure portal using the user interface. That like you cannot give this Logic app permission to use Microsoft Graph API using this Azure portal user interface. There is a PowerShell commandlet that will help you do this. I'll paste the link in the description. But today I would show you like how can you do this using the user interface using the Microsoft Graph Explorer. All right. So prerequisite for this tutorial is you need to have an active Azure subscription. Yeah, you should be familiar with managed identity, and also you should be the global admin for the usage of Graph Explorer. All right. So here, I think our Logic app is ready. I'll go back to the Logic app and turn on the identity, manage identity. So if I go to the identity section, I'll just turn it on and click on save. Yeah, click on save. Okay, and in access control IAM, I'll click on add role assignment. So this part is creating the manage identity. So let's select owner, select manage identity, select members. Okay, so here should be the name of your Logic app. So if you go here, this is the name of our logic app. I'll just select it and click on select. All right, I'll click on review and assign, and this should create our managed identity for the logic app. Okay, so once we did that, I'll go to the logic app designer and click on blank logic app. I'll need a HTTPS connector. So I'll type in HTTPS. Let's see. Um, couldn't find it here. Let's type in again. Oh, it should be HTTP maybe, I guess. Oh, there you go. HTTP request. All right, I'll click on new and it should be HTTP to invoke the service. This is what we need. This, I'll delete this. Yeah. Okay. I'll delete this. We got it. Okay. So now we have got the HTTP method. We should be using this logic app to call Microsoft Graph. So I'll just change this to get request and uh, manage devices. Okay. So we'll be using Microsoft Graph for managed devices. So I'll click on the first link. Here you go. So this is the URL that we need. Um, up along with that, we might also need graph.microsoft.com. This is it. This is the whole URL that we need. Okay. So now I think we are good. We additionally we need this permission to run this API. Okay. So right now, if I go to the authentication section, so I'll be selecting authentication. In the authentication type, I need to select manage identity. So right now we have system managed identity. So let's select that. And in the audience, we should be selecting Microsoft Graph. So currently we have a constant string available that can be used to represent Microsoft Graph. Okay, so we'll be looking at it. It starts with 000 something. Let's find it later. But right now this part is over, the logic app part. Now we will be moving to find the service principal of managed identity. So to do that, let's head on to the Graph Explorer. So in Graph Explorer, you need to sign in so that you can access your organization data via Graph API. Note that the organization might have restriction in place for users consenting to the permission for this API. And in any case, if you want to use the example that we'll be using here, uh, you'll need to have a global administrator rights anyway. Okay, so the first thing first, we would need to do is find the service principal of the managed identities. So to list the service principal, we have another Graph API that we could be using. So I'll just copy this and paste it over here. Okay, and apart from that, I think I'll be using some query parameters to quickly search for the one that we are looking for. So let's do it search equal to display name, and that should be the name of the service principal. So if I go back, let's save this for now. Now we just need to add the audience part and we should be done with it. But let's save this for now. I'll go to the IAM section and the role assignment. Yeah, logic app new. So this is the name. Let's see if we can find this. Okay, and yeah, let's see. Okay, there's something wrong with the name, or maybe the. Okay, so the error says we need a header as consistency level eventual. So let's put this header consistency level, and it should be eventual. Okay, let's add this header and try to run the query, and there you go, it run as expected. Yeah, so we got the service principal, so we'll be copying the ID of this service principal. So this is the ID you should be taking a note of. Okay, let's open a new notepad and take a note of it. So this is the service principal of your managed identity. Okay, so this part is done. So we'll be needing this ID later. You can also get the service principal directly by ID by just copying this ID and doing a get call. Okay, so now we need to find the service principal of Microsoft Graph. So let's remove this and search for graph. I'm gonna do a get query. Let's see if we can find graph API real quick. Nope. Okay, let's do it through the search. So I'll be using a filter query, $filter, $filter equal to app ID equals. So this is the long string that I was talking about, the app ID. So it has 5 zeros, I think, 3, 4, 5, 3, or maybe the 6 zeros, 3, and then 000, 4 times 0, again 4 times 0. So this is the constant string. It never changes. This is constant for graph. And then followed by 12 zeros. I should have kept a note of it, but it didn't work out. Okay, I guess the app ID, there's some missing zeros over here. Let's Google it. Let me check real quick. Okay, let me just Google the value that I have. I think it should give us the Graph API app ID. Okay, there you go. So this is the one. Hopefully this would work. And filter equal to app ID equals this thing. And hopefully we won't get 400 bad requests. There you go. All right, so we got the Graph API app ID. So let's copy this as well. Take a note of it. Okay. And also the audience part of this. Okay. Let's complete the logic app for now, since we got the audience part. Yeah, here and there you go. The audience part has to be the audience of Microsoft Graph. Okay, so this ID will be constant for you as well. Okay, so we are ready to go with the logic app, and we need to save this. Okay, let's save this. So by the time this is getting saved, uh, I think it got saved successfully. We need to find the application role, which is the last thing. Application role that will be the permission that we would like to assign. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to use service principal along with the graph API service principal and search for the app role. So service principal slash we need graph API app ID. So this is the service principal of graph API along with app roles. Okay. All right. So now we have got the ID app roles of all the permission which exist in Microsoft Graph. So all we need is device management, manage devices. So I'll go ahead in the Graph Explorer and search for it, Control F, and find uh, Intune. No. So read all users profile. I need Intune. Yeah, read Microsoft device policy, device management configuration. I need device management and manage devices. So let's search for manage devices. Yeah, there you go. So we got device management, manage devices, read all. So just copy this ID. So this is the permission that we need. So I'll just copy this ID and take a note of it as well. Okay. So now there are a lot of application role permission for Microsoft Graph. So we got the one that we needed. Right. So let's assign this application role to manage identity. I'll be pasting the link to the documentation in the chat, but we would be using the service principal API again. And this time we would be using the app role assigned to. Okay, so this is the API that we would be using. Let me quickly go to the documentation. Here you go. So this is the API that we would be using. I'll just copy the request body that we need and change this to post. Okay, so the first part is the manage identity of the service principal of manage identity. Okay, so let's go here and check the service principal of manage identity. So I'll copy this and replace it over here. The second part is the service principal of your graph API. So let's copy this. And the third part is the app role ID which you copied just now. This is for the permission. Okay, so once we are done over here, I'll click on run query, and this would allow the manage identity to give the permission of Microsoft Graph to this logic app. But before we do that, I'll just quickly run this logic app to confirm that it would give us forbidden error. And that is the result that we should be expecting right now because the app role is not assigned yet. So we are waiting for the logic app to run. I've triggered it. Mhm. Let's see the results. There you go. So you got, okay, so there are a bunch of errors that we got. So, all right, let's try this now with the Graph Explorer. I'll click on run, and you see you got 200 OK as the response, 201 in fact, and this tells you that the app role has been assigned to this logic app, and the manage identity has been applied over here. So let's try to run this again. Okay, it still gave us the error. Okay, looks like it was not found. This particular Graph API audience was not found. Let's see. Let's see if we can get this um, by, okay, let's copy this. Oh, there's a leading comma over there, and that might be the reason why it failed. I think now it is correct. Let's save this quickly. All right, so this should be good. We should be able to run the logic app now. So the trigger has been successfully done, and this should able to run the logic app successfully. Yeah, there you go. So we got the results from the Microsoft Graph API using the Intune API and using the authentication as managed identity. So in this video, I have showed you how you can use Graph Explorer to add Graph API application role permission to your managed identity. Similar steps can be used for against any of the Azure AD protected APIs other than Graph, so that you would like to use the managed identity with. So just in case if you need any other permission, so you'll be using the same method to get the permission like we did with Control F. I'll be pasting all the links that we have used here along with the GUIDs and in the description below. And if you have any other questions, then feel free to let me know. Thank you.